All right, let's get right into it. 2025, what a year. This was the year that all of tech's biggest, wildest promises finally had to face reality. It was, a pretty chaotic, pivotal 12 months of reality checks, some amazing surprise hits, and yeah, a few really painful misses. So we're going to break down the year that just happened, and then we're going to look ahead to what the leaks and rumors are already telling us is coming in 2026.
To really get a feel for 2025, you have to look at the total contradictions. So on one hand, you have these moments of just pure hardware excellence. 9 to 5 Mac, for instance, they went ahead and crowned the iPhone 17 as its product of the year. That's a huge win in a super crowded market, and a sign that, some companies can still deliver exactly what people want.
But for every single one of those triumphant highs, there was a seriously looming low. Android Authority was basically sounding the alarm on a massive RAM shortage. We're talking a supply chain nightmare that threatened to just cripple the entire budget Android market. It was a pretty stark reminder that this whole industry is way more fragile than it looks.
And then, of course, there was the biggest story of them all, artificial intelligence. After that absolute explosion of hype back in 2024, this was the year AI had its, let's call it a come-to-Jesus moment. The magic kind of started to fade, and the messy, complicated, and, let's be honest, sometimes frustrating reality of it as an actual product began to set in.
This right here, this quote from Ars Technica, it just perfectly sums up the user experience of 2025. You have a technology, eSIM, that was designed for pure convenience, but it became a source of major regret for anyone trying to switch carriers or, heaven forbid, travel internationally. It's the perfect snapshot of a year where progress didn't always feel like an improvement.
So let's kick things off with that dominant story, AI's difficult transition. The central theme of 2025 was basically watching artificial intelligence go from being treated like this magical, all-knowing oracle to, just another piece of software. A really powerful one for sure, but one with bugs and biases and very real-world limitations. And honestly, this quote from Ars Technica just nails it. It perfectly illustrates that entire shift. The lofty promises of superhuman intelligence just ran headfirst into the inconvenient research of how incredibly hard this stuff actually is to pull off. What we were left with weren't profits, but, products.
So naturally, this big reality check led everyone to ask the big question. Is this all just a bubble? According to venture capitalists that GeekWire polled, the answer is, it's complicated. They see clear signs of excess and hype, absolutely, especially with all the early-stage startups. But they pretty much reject the idea of a catastrophic burst. They argue that, unlike past bubbles, AI is already delivering real, tangible value.
Now, what's really interesting here is how this slide breaks that shift down. 2024 was all about the magic and the VC frenzy, right? But 2025, that was about practical tools, but it was also about some very real problems. Large-scale outages, security vulnerabilities, huge ethical concerns. And the crucial point, as ZDNet pointed out, is that this new reality even killed the cloud-first strategy, which forced companies to move toward a more resilient, hybrid computing model.
Okay, now let's move into the physical world. Let's get away from the cloud and the code, because 2025 gave us some absolutely fantastic gadgets and some that were, frankly, just a headache.
And the biggest hit of the year? It had to be this one, Apple's iPhone 17. It was a massive critical and commercial success, proving that sometimes just nailing the fundamentals can feel like a huge leap forward.
And it wasn't just the phone either. Apple had a really strong hardware year all around. The AirPods Pro 3, for example, introduced a powerful new heart rate sensing feature, pushing earbuds even deeper into that health and wellness space. It really was an exciting year for their new stuff. But then there's the other side of the coin. For every polished success, there was a user-level headache. That big push to eSIM, which was supposed to simplify things, it left a lot of people feeling like they'd been forced into a downgrade that made switching phones or finding a new carrier an absolute nightmare. And these problems were everywhere. You had that Android RAM shortage we talked about. There was a wild leak pointing to a future Samsung phone with a ridiculously huge 20,000 mAh battery, a sure sign of the desperate arms race for power. Even the celebrated iPhone 17 Pro wasn't perfect, with users reporting a weird, faint static noise while charging. And oh yeah, Samsung had to actually halt a Galaxy Watch update because it was reportedly draining batteries and breaking sensors. It was just a messy year.
So with all this chaos in our individual devices, one of the most interesting stories of 2025 was this slow, steady march toward truly interconnected platforms. See, it's not just about your phone anymore. It's about your phone talking to your car, your home, and pretty much everything in between.
A perfect example of this is the long-awaited arrival of robot vacuums to Apple's HomeKit. So thanks to the Matter smart home standard finally getting some traction, an update to iOS 18.4 allowed users to connect and control a whole new category of devices right from the Home app, just using Siri. This is that ecosystem promise finally starting to become a reality.
And you know what? The same story played out in our cars. CarPlay Ultra, Apple's next-gen in-car experience, officially started its rollout. As this chart from 9to5Mac shows us, it kicked off with Aston Martin, but other huge brands like Ford, Honda, and Porsche are already committed. This deeper integration is turning the car into just another node in your personal tech ecosystem.
Okay, so that was the complicated, messy reality of 2025. Now for the fun part. Let's look at what all the whispers from the supply chain and the predictions from industry watchers tell us is coming next year.
And the year is going to kick off, as it always does, with the Consumer Electronics Show. Mashable's predictions give us a great snapshot of the big themes. And surprise, surprise, it's going to be AI everywhere. But also, look for giant TVs. Apparently 85 inches is the new 65, continued growth in the smart home and Matter space, a new trend of RGB TVs which add customizable bias lighting to the back of the set, and of course, a ton of new EV tech.
The product roadmap for the year is already starting to take shape. Samsung is expected to launch the Galaxy S26 early in the year with a huge focus on faster on-device AI. We're also anticipating a whole new generation of laptops with faster chips, though Digital Trends is warning they might come with some memory trade-offs. And looking even further out, that RAM shortage we've been talking about, Mashable is reporting it could even push the release of the PlayStation 6 beyond its expected window. So what are the big themes for 2026? Well, we're expecting a huge push into smarter health, with Samsung tackling dementia detection and Apple Fitness Plus teasing something big. At the same time, phone designs could get uniquely bold, and AI is set to become your personal fitness coach for literally everything from meal planning to recovery. And as GeekWire notes, get ready to look up, because lunar missions are expected to take center stage.
So we have covered a lot. A year of serious reality checks and a year of bold predictions. But the crucial point is, what does all of this mean for you? How will these big macro trends actually change the way you use technology day to day?
I think this concept, highlighted by GeekWire, is the absolute key. An SVP at Amazon Web Services calls it agentic work. This is the next evolution. It's the point where AI stops being a passive tool that you have to command, like a calculator or a search engine, and becomes a proactive teammate that anticipates what you need and actually works with you.
And that, really, is the main takeaway from all of this. 2025 was the great collision, where the hype of AI and next-gen hardware met the harsh realities of implementation. What 2026 promises is to take that new, grounded reality and make it deeply personal, smarter, and way more seamlessly integrated into our health, our homes, and our work.
Which leaves us with this final and I think provocative question. As we move from tools that we control to agents that assist us, the most important conversation we're going to need to have in 2026 isn't about processor speeds or camera specs. It's about trust, agency, and just how much of our lives we're really willing to hand over to the algorithm.